Hello and welcome to Diaspora Digital Media. Tinubu must probe Buhari's 30 trillion Naira loan. My name is Ram Jr. and this is the editorial. Amidst biting economic realities, the federal government of Nigeria has firmed up its intent to audit the 23 trillion Naira Ways and Means debt incurred by the immediate past administration of Muhammadu Buhari. Here is a reminder. Buhari, 81, a retired Major General of the Nigerian Army, served as Nigeria's president for two four-year terms spanning 2015 to 2023. He had earlier served as Nigeria's military head of state from the 31st of December 1983 to the 27th of August 1985 after seizing power via a coup d'etat from the Shehu Shagari civilian administration. Now let's get back to the business of the 30 trillion Naira debt. It was revealed that President Buhari borrowed through CBN's Ways and Means a mind-boggling trench of 30 trillion Naira. He did the borrowing amid insecurity, endemic corruption, and harsh economic policies, including closure of borders against importation, without first of all boosting internal production capacity. Economic wonks insist that this greatly derailed his administration. So in a bid to jumpstart the economy, Buhari obtained the Ways and Means from the Central Bank of Nigeria, then headed by the now embattled Godwin Emefiele. So what is Ways and Means? The phrase Ways and Means originates from the 17th century British Parliament, and it is, and I quote, the provision of revenue to meet national expenditure requirements. End of quote. In the Nigerian context, however, Ways and Means is understood as an emergency loan sourced to fix pressing national needs. What the law says. DDM understands that Section 38 subsection 1 and Section 38 subsection 2 of the CBN Act were flouted in the procurement of the said loans. The Act prescribes that borrowing via Ways and Means must be temporary and should only occur in respect of temporary deficiency of budget revenue. It was emphasized that the Buhari administration had previously borrowed funds from international sources to fund large swathes of its budget and also had no alarming revenue shortfall. Hence, there was no justification whatsoever to have approached the CBN for the loans in the first place. Section 38 subsection 2 of the CBN Act was also flouted. It stipulates that, and I quote, the total amount of such advances outstanding shall not at any time exceed 5% of the previous year's actual revenue of the federal government. End of quote. However, Buhari overshot the 5% ceiling and grew Ways and Means from 856 billion naira to 23.8 trillion naira, representing 2,635% in 7 years. Let's just take a quick look at these statistics. In 2017, actual revenue was 2.7 trillion, but Ways and Means stood at 1.1 trillion naira, representing 37.2% of the previous year's revenue, which was 2.95 trillion. This is against the spirit of Section 38, subsection 2 of the CBN Act. In 2018, actual revenue stood at 3.87 trillion naira, whereas Ways and Means was estimated at 2.1 trillion naira. In 2019, actual revenue was 4.12 trillion naira, while Ways and Means stood at 3.3 trillion naira, indicating 85.27% of the 2018 revenue. In 2020, actual revenue was 4.04 trillion, with Ways and Means standing at 4.4 trillion, representing 107% of the previous year's revenue, meaning that Buhari borrowed 7% more than the entire revenue realized in 2019 from the CBN. In 2021, actual revenue was 4.64 trillion, while Ways and Means was 4.3 trillion naira, representing 106.4% of the 2020 revenue. In 2022, actual revenue was 6.49 trillion, whereas Ways and Means our advances stood at 6.4 trillion, representing 138% of the 2021 revenue. Now, Buhari's apology. President Muhammadu Buhari, on the 28th of May 2023, in his farewell speech to the nation, apologized for some economic policies of his administration that caused suffering to Nigerians. He said, and in his words, "We made some difficult choices. While some yielded the desired result, some of the measures led to temporary pains and suffering, for which I sincerely apologize to my fellow countrymen. But the measures were taken for the overall good of the country." End of quote. Let us now fast forward to the current situation. Barely 9 months into the new administration, Nigeria's economy has plunged into unimaginable debts, even as key players in government put the blame on the previous administration and opposition politicians. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wale Edun, says the federal government will leave no stone unturned in auditing the said Ways and Means. He announced this at the Public Wealth Management Conference organized by the Ministry of Finance on Wednesday in Abuja. He said, and I quote, "There was an inherited amount of 22.7 trillion naira in backlogs. We are auditing it, and it is like when I am ready to pay for a loan from a bank, I ask for an audit before finding the agreed sum to pay. But apart from that, how do you get your Ways and Means down? We have to get revenues up and expenditure reduced as much as possible." End of quote. I stop part 1 here. I continue Apabio's story in part 2.